Happy Pride Month, everybody. This is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about how Joel Schumacher originally took the blame for the failure of the two Batman movies and comic book movies alike. So, in case people don't know, Joel Schumacher was an openly gay man and he was a director. And he had directed many hit movies back in the day, like The Lost Boys and stuff like that. At some point in time in the mid to late 90s, they approached him to direct the Batman movies that was once directed by that of Tim Burton. And so Tim Burton, back in 1989, directed Batman, a phenomenal movie. Then in 1992, he directed Batman Returns, an even better movie. But Batman Returns was way too dark and grim, to the point where it scared little kids. I remember back in the day, there was one scene I just could not watch, and I always had to turn my head. It's when the penguin bit that man's nose and blood went everywhere. Now I'm okay with this scene because I'm older. But I remember, there used to be a talk show called Sally Raphael, and there was a bunch of kids on there talking about how the Batman movie scared the crap out of them. So, because of this, with some behind the scenes shenanigans and stuff, and movie Hollywood politics, Tim Burton was out. And so, because of that, Michael Keaton didn't want to return if Tim Burton didn't, because he read the script for the third movie and did not like it and left. So that put things in a bit of a monkey in the wrench situation, where they had to find not only a new Batman, but of course a new director. And so this is not going to be a review on Batman Returns or Batman and Robin, but just the gist of what happened back in the day and how Joel Schumacher had to take the full blame. See, back in the day, the internet wasn't the way the internet was now. There was no social media, and pretty much if a movie bombed, the sole blame never goes to the studio. Normally, it will go to either the director or the actors and stuff. They really don't think too much about the writers and everything, but for the most part, the studio, is never to blame and everything. So directors and actors normally take the blame, and it normally kills their career. But for the most part, it's mostly the director and everything. And so that's kind of what happened to Joel Schumacher. Now, Joel is to blame for some of the failure of his Batman movie, but he is not the sole perpetrator in this. In fact, it's actually DC, Warner Brothers, and McDonald's of all places and stuff. Yes. And what's ironic about that is Michael Keaton actually played the man and the founder who stole McDonald's from the original creators. That's kind of weird in a full circle kind of way. And so Val Kilmer was cast as the new Bruce Wayne / Batman. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what the Flash movie says, because I saw that movie and it's terrible. Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, and George Clooney are the same Bruce Wayne / Batman. Just like Christopher Reeves and Brandon Routh are the same Clark Kent / Superman. And just like all the James Bond are the exact same person. I don't want to even get into all this. Oh, but what about the multiverse? And what about the Flash movie? And what about George Clooney at the end of the movie? And what about the Batman 89 comic book? I don't care. That don't count. All right. Somehow Two-Face had a race change, went from black to white. And Batman Forever, because in Batman he was played by a black man, and then in Batman Forever he was white. I don't care. He had a race change surgery, something. I don't care. They're the same people and everything. And so that's how movies were back then. They was always in the same continuity. Now, when it comes to Joel Schumacher, Batman Forever actually isn't a bad movie. It's actually a pretty good movie, in my opinion. Yes, the neon colors are a bit irritating. Yes, some of the dialogue can be a bit and the whole Robin looking like a grown man is just bizarre and weird. But in my mind, he was always an adult playing a teenager like most 20, 30-year olds are in television. So if people can accept that, a bunch of 20, 30-year olds playing teenagers in television shows, you should be able to accept the same thing in this movie. But he did look like a grown man. In my opinion, he was like 18, in my opinion. But it was still weird because he's 18, grown, and living with like a grown man and everything. He could have had his own place. But, the whole thing is, oh, he lived in the circus. And that was just weird. They should have just had a young person, time jumped it. Then that's what they should have did. But anyway. But for the most part, Batman Forever is a pretty solid movie. And, it actually did exactly what it was supposed to do. It made a ton of money, and it made the executives happy. It made Warner Brothers happy, it made DC happy, and it made McDonald's happy. Because McDonald's was threatening to pull their licensing from their Happy Meal deal that they had with the Batman movies and stuff. But then they later decided, I think either they kept it or maybe Burger King took over. I know somebody had the mugs. I don't know if it was McDonald's or Burger King. But anyway, it made a bunch of people happy. And for the most part, Batman Forever is probably the most comic book-ish accurate type Batman movie ever, in the sense that, because you gotta remember how comic books were back in the day. They were silly and goofy and bright and colorful. They didn't start to get more serious and dark and grim till much later and stuff. You had Two-Face being burnt. He was a district attorney. He was burnt in the face and became Two-Face. The Riddler was very silly, based off the comics and the Adam West show. And you had Batman actually doing flips. He was swinging around on his bat grapple through the city. He was fighting and everything. He was using more of his gadgets than he ever did in those first two movies and stuff. Because at this point, they was able to get better stunt actors in a suit that you can flex around a lot more. And they introduced Robin and everything. Yes, some things were changed here and there, like Two-Face being the one killing Robin's parents. That's never happened and stuff. But for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward movie. And then of course you have the weird MacGuffin type thing that's supposed to suck the brain energy out of people that goes into the Riddler's head, which is such a comic bookish type thing, but it was kind of stupid for live action. So the movie's not perfect, don't get me wrong. Batman Forever is not a perfect movie, but it's a pretty good, solid movie, and there's been way worse comic book movies other than that, like Batman and Robin. And so, but for the most part, everybody was just, for the most part, midway happy and stuff. And he made a pretty good movie, but you know what? We found out later on in deleted scenes, he actually wanted to make the movie more serious and dark. There are deleted scenes that goes through the psychologicalness of Bruce Wayne's head. That's one thing that was fascinating about this movie. We really got to dive deep into Bruce Wayne's psyche. And for the first time, we actually found out where the dude works at and everything. We never knew that in the first two movies. And so the deleted scenes are supposed to delve deeper into the Red Book, his mental psyche, this whole giant bat thing flying in his nightmares and stuff. It was actually supposed to be a pretty solid, serious, and slightly dark movie. But because Tim Burton's movie was way too dark, because see, the first Tim Burton movie was a Batman movie. The second one, Batman Returns, was a Tim Burton movie with the miniatures and stuff like that, and the darkness and the grim, and Catwoman being the way she was and resurrecting from the dead and stuff like that. So because it scared people and it didn't make that much money and they wanted to keep their licensing deal, they literally told Joel Schumacher, hey, look, man, you gotta lighten this movie up. It can't be too dark. It has to be for kids, and blah, 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 blah. And that was DC, Warner Brothers, and McDonald's, along with Bob Kane, who worked in DC who lied and said he was the sole creator of Batman, but we know he was the co-creator along with Bill Finger. Now, when it comes to Bob Kane, I'm not gonna diss him because most likely DC probably forced him to say that, and I bet you anything they did because they just didn't want to pay royalties to Bill Finger and everything. And it's kind of the same way with Marvel, Spider-Man, and Stan Lee. They made him literally say, yo, you're the sole creator of Spider-Man, when really he wasn't and stuff. He was the co-creator. So I'm not going to diss Bob Kane because we don't really know what went on in those executive meetings and stuff. But basically, Joel Schumacher was told, hey, look, man, you got to lighten this movie up. You got to make it for kids and this and that. So this is where the more humorous take went on when they hired Jim Carrey. Of course, Jim Carrey doesn't act. He just acts like himself in movies. So, of course, if you're going to hire Jim Carrey, you're going to have that zaniness. That's why I don't like him in the Sonic movies. He doesn't act like Dr. Robotnik. He just acts like Jim Carrey. Around the 2010s, he actually started trying to act, but those movies started to bomb. So he went back to just being Jim Carrey. As for Two-Face acting like the Joker and everything, that's only because Tommy Lee Jones was being a diva on set. He did not like Jim Carrey and believes Jim Carrey can't act. So he kept trying to outstage Jim Carrey in the humor and stuff. And Joel Schumacher should have told him, hey, look, man, this ain't right. You're supposed to be serious. You're supposed to be a dark, grim character. He should have told him to tone that down. But for whatever reason he didn't, because I guess he wanted to like, okay, well, since this is for kids, that'd be for kids. Also, they was more in line about selling toys. The Batmobile got redesigned, and I like the design of the Batmobile. It's cool, but you can tell this is just a giant toy and everything. And so for the most part, like I said before, Batman Forever is a pretty good, like, solid movie and everything. It's not perfect, but it's all right. But then there comes that of Batman and Robin, and that's when you gotta put a lot of more of the blame on Joel Schumacher and stuff. But also DC, Warner Brothers, and everybody else. See, because everybody was happy with Batman Forever, they said, all right, do that again. So he took it upon himself to kind of go a bit overboard. He brought too much of what he brought in to Batman Forever and brought in way more zaniness, way more goofiness. Why? Because he was trying to mirror the Adam West Batman show, which was a huge mistake right there. The only reason why he even added Bane is because I think his nephew, grandson, or something like that, liked Bane or saw Bane in a television show, the Batman cartoon, and he's like, all right, and he's like, oh, that's a cool villain. Let me put him in the movie. It was too overstuffed with villains. There was way too many puns. It was too bright and colorful. And the suits had like even bigger, like, you know, nipples and the cockpits and stuff like that. And it was just too much. He infused too much in that movie and it bombed. But let's not forget, you know, they told him just do basically what you did in the last movie, but he just went overboard. So yes, he is to blame for like the failure of Batman and Robin because he overdid it and everything, you know. He should have toned himself down. He should have pulled himself back and realized, you know what, this is a bit too much. But he just, you know how when people get like excited and start going and cooking, they go overboard and the pot boils over. And that's basically what happened in this movie. Not to mention, this movie was basically a giant toy advertisement. It's been now revealed that when it came to like the costume designs and the vehicles, like towards the end of the movies, it was just there to sell toys, basically. Basically, whatever toy company they had, which I don't know if it was Mattel or not, but it was somebody. And they basically told him, hey, look, man, you don't have to worry about this. We got this. And that's why at the end of the movie, the costumes looked really silly. The vehicles looked really silly because they weren't there to be taken seriously. They was there to sell toys to little kids. And I've said this before, kids always ruin everything. They ruin, like, you know, because, oh, Batman Returns is too dark. Oh, let's lighten it up. And then now look what we had. We had Batman and Robin. Same thing happened in Ninja Turtles. Oh, the first one's too dark and grim. Well, let's liven it up for the second movie and not have them use their weapons. And then in the third movie, let's go with cheaper, like, costumes and stuff. Kids always ruin everything. So, because of that, like a portion of this movie is to blame on Joel, but another huge portion is, of course, the corporate people behind it, Warner Brothers, DC, and probably McDonald's. I don't know about them, but if Mattel was the toy company, you gotta blame them too. And so, because of that, the movie Beyond tanked. Those puns were terrible. The costumes were just a little ridiculous and everything. The movie didn't really make that much of sense, and they wasted Bane. Because of this, the superhero movie was in limbo. There really weren't any because of this movie. And it took 10 whole years for another Batman movie to get made. And I feel bad for Joel, partially because, like I said, partially it's his fault, but partially it's not. But he took the blame. He took the blame so bad he had to go to director's jail and everything. No, director's jail is not a real prison. It's a term used in Hollywood to where if you screw up in the movie and it bombs, basically no other studio is going to trust you with this sensitive material. And that's basically what happened for a couple of years after that. It was even to the point where they wanted to make another Batman movie, and he wanted to make like a Batman Year One. They said no. Then he wanted to make a movie where Harley Quinn was the daughter of the Joker and Jack Nicholson would return, and Scarecrow was actually the villain, and Batman was hallucinating thinking the Joker was real. They said no. The man was trying to do everything he could to get back in the good graces of Warner Brothers, but they basically just like, nah, that's good. We don't want another Batman movie. And of course, 10 years later, Christopher Nolan came in and made everything realistic. And it was so sad because there's a video of Joel Schumacher. I think they did like this anniversary of all the Batman movies where a lot of directors came back and talked. The man literally apologized on the video. And that apology really hurt me so much because, like, he was the sole person that was put for the blame of the failure of the Batman movies and stuff. And he literally said those movies didn't turn out how you wanted them to. If it hurt you or anything, if it upset you, if like he literally said like he is sorry. Like the man literally apologized. And yeah, he did owe people an apology, but like I said before, he wasn't the sole person for why these movies looked the way they did. This is because they wanted those movies to sell toys to little kids. People like when it comes to actual costumes, I don't know who's responsible for like the suits looking the way they so manly, bulgy down there and stuff. I think he said he wanted them to look like Greek statues or something like that. So if it is him, then yeah, he needs to be blamed for that because that was too much bulge and everything. And we don't need nipples on a bat suit. But then people was arguing that, oh, he put naked man statues in the middle of the city, giant statues, which, yeah, there were, and Batman and Robin. But if you go back to Batman Returns, guess what? There's a naked man statue there too, but he's crouched down and holding a giant sword in his hand. Nevertheless, it is still a giant naked man statue, but you didn't complain when Tim Burton put it in his movie. But a lot of people felt like he put too much of himself into those movies with the bright neon colors, the Batman suits looking the way they did, the naked statues and stuff. And, I have no idea if that's really true or not because he's not here to defend himself because sadly, may he rest in peace, he died in 2020 of cancer and everything. But the damage was done. Like no apology was gonna really save his career after that. Because after that, every movie he made, something happened mentally with him. It had to. It must have broke him. Because every movie he made afterwards tanked at the box office. He didn't have not one successful movie after Batman Forever. And with everybody blaming him, and you know how people are blaming folks back in the day when a movie does bad. I mean, just look at today's culture when they add a diverse person into a movie. They say, "Oh, that's woke and everything." So this is the thing what this man had to go through, being an openly gay man making a movie, and it bombed, and it's a huge property like Batman. So people was, and it was the late 90s. So people must have treated him like crap and everything. And I feel so bad for the dude, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not, like I said, it's not all his fault and everything. Like, it was the corporate, like, people sticking their toes into the movies with all that studio interference and messing it up. And so he basically just did what they said, make it for kids. And that's what he did. And we know he wanted to make a serious Batman movie because Batman Forever deleted scenes are very serious and stuff. And it's even to the point where people are all like, release the Schumacher cut and everything, because people want to see the actual real Batman Forever movie, but DC and Warner Brothers will never ever do that. So this is what this video is about, just the defense of this man who's not the sole perpetrator for ruining these Batman movies and stuff. There's always somebody behind the scenes that's like doing things they got no business doing, and it's called studio interference. And like, it was so bad because in the New Adventures of Batman, like the animated series, Bruce Timm made a young boy character that looked like Joel Schumacher, and he had a pink boa around his neck, and talking about like the Batman Forever movie. And till this day, people don't know if it's an homage or if Bruce Timm is mocking that of like Joel Schumacher, because I think Bruce Timm said he didn't like those movies. So, and because normally when they do add a real person into their cartoon series, it's normally a mockery, even if they mock themselves, because Bruce Timm has literally drawn himself twice in this series and both were mocked. And also in The Batman, the WB Kids cartoon series, they mocked the original creators of Batman, the animated series. So most likely this is probably him mocking Joel as opposed to that of an homage, which is just even more hurtful for that man to why he apologized. And he apologized because he knows that if you make a stinker of a movie, Hollywood is done with you after that. So he was trying to save his career any way means possible, but sadly it just did not happen before he passed. And I don't think he was never a terrible man. When you see him in interviews and you saw behind the scene pictures of him playing with like, the Batmobile and the Batwing and all this other stuff, he seemed like a really nice, fun guy to get along with and stuff. So if Joel was being mocked in the cartoon series, then Bruce Timm owes him an apology, because like Bruce Timm knows all about studio interference, because there was a lot of stuff he couldn't do with a lot of his cartoon series. And plus he owes us an apology for the killing joke. But anyways, and there's also people upset because of the script of Batman and Robin, but you gotta remember, Joel didn't write that movie. He directed it. Now, of course, the director can change the dialogue and stuff like that. We don't know how much he's changed, but you gotta remember, he didn't write it, he just directed it. And most likely he probably did infuse his own LGBT, presence in the Batman and Robin movie, because a lot of directors will put themselves in the movie. I mean, Tim Burton did with the first two, well, at least with the second one, that is. And so he probably I'll put a little bit of myself in here. And it was the late 90s and people just wasn't ready for that yet. Like, I remember hearing people say that Poison Ivy looks like a drag queen and everything. And even George Clooney said he played Batman like he was gay and everything, because that's just the way he felt that character was written, and all the stuff that he saw with the colorful sets and this and that, and he said he just played it like a gay man and everything, which is probably why he didn't put no effort into that role. He was just literally there for a paycheck and everything. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.